We've all been there, stuck, frustrated, ready to throw in the towel. Maybe it's a project that isn't moving forward, a business that's struggling, or a dream that feels just out of reach. And in that moment, we have a choice. Do we see this frustration as a dead end, or do we recognize it for what it truly is? An opportunity in disguise. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history were born from frustration. The light bulb, the airplane, even modern medicine, none of them would exist without someone hitting a wall, refusing to accept defeat, and deciding to see things differently. So today, let's explore the power of perspective. How do we take our frustrations and turn them into stepping stones towards something greater? The way we define a problem determines the way we approach it, and the way we approach it determines the outcome. Think about a locked door. If we see the locked door as a sign that we are trapped, we focus on our frustration. We push, we bang on it, we complain that it won't budge. But if we take a step back and ask, what if the key isn't missing? What if I'm just looking in the wrong place? Suddenly, new options appear. We check our pockets. We look for another entrance. We even consider that maybe the answer isn't behind that door at all, but somewhere else entirely. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history came not from solving a problem head-on, but by redefining what the problem actually was. Take the Wright brothers, for example. For centuries, humans dreamed of flying. But many early inventors focused on the wrong question. How do we make something light enough to float in the air? The problem wasn't weight. The problem was lift. The Wright brothers realized that birds didn't stay in the air because they were light. They stayed in the air because of the shape of their wings. Instead of obsessing over making something weightless, they focused on how to control movement through the air. That shift in perspective changed everything. They didn't just build a flying machine, they built a future where flight was possible. The same principle applies to business. When Netflix started, they didn't set out to compete with Blockbuster on its own terms. Blockbuster saw itself as a video rental business. Movies on shelves, late fees, return policies. Netflix reframed the problem. They asked, what if people don't want to go to a store at all? What if the problem isn't about renting movies, but about access to entertainment? That shift in thinking led to DVD delivery and eventually to streaming. Blockbuster was stuck asking how to improve video rentals. Netflix was asking how to redefine the entire experience. Reframing a problem isn't just about business and innovation. It's deeply personal too. How many times do we find ourselves frustrated, stuck, convinced that we're out of options? We tell ourselves stories like, I'm not good at this, I'll never figure it out, there's nothing more I can do. But the problem isn't always our ability, it's our perspective. Imagine someone struggling with their job. They feel unmotivated, uninspired, frustrated by their daily routine. They tell themselves, I hate my job, I need a new one. But what if the issue isn't the job itself? What if the real frustration is lack of growth? What if instead of looking for an escape, they looked for a challenge within the job that reignites their passion? What if they focused on learning something new, taking on a project outside their usual tasks, or shifting their approach to their work? The job may not need to change, only the way they see it. Or think about relationships. When two people are constantly arguing, they often assume that the problem is the disagreement itself. They fight to prove who is right, trying to win the argument instead of trying to understand each other. But what if the real issue isn't the disagreement? What if the real issue is how they communicate? Instead of asking, how do I get them to see my side? What if they asked, how do we create an environment where we both feel heard? That single shift can turn conflict into connection. Reframing doesn't make problems disappear. It doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending struggles don't exist. What it does is open new doors. It allows us to see beyond the obvious, to find solutions where before there were only obstacles. It moves us from frustration to possibility, from limitation. Success is not about avoiding frustration. It's about knowing what to do with it. The most successful people in the world don't have fewer problems than everyone else. They don't experience less failure, less resistance, or fewer setbacks. In fact, they often face more of these things. What sets them apart is how they use frustration as fuel. When most people hit a wall, they stop, they complain. They assume the system is against them or that they just aren't good enough. They let frustration drain them instead of drive them. But the people who achieve great things, the ones who build movements, change industries, redefine what's possible, see frustration as raw energy waiting to be redirected. Instead of resisting it, they embrace it. Instead of feeling stuck, they let it push them toward new ideas, new strategies, new ways of thinking. Look at Steve Jobs. He was fired from Apple, the very company he founded. Most people would have seen that as the ultimate defeat. He could have walked away, given up, let frustration consume him. Instead, he used it. He took that frustration and built something new, Next and Pixar. He reinvented himself, honed his vision, and when he returned to Apple, he was stronger, sharper, more innovative than ever. That period of frustration wasn't wasted, it was leveraged. Without it, the Apple we know today wouldn't exist. Or take J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, she faced rejection after rejection from publishers. She was struggling financially, raising a child alone, and every no she received could have been the moment she gave up. But she didn't. She let the frustration of rejection drive her to refine her work, to push forward, to keep going when most people would have quit. And because of that, she created one of the most beloved stories of all time. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent, it's not luck, it's not even intelligence, it's what they do with frustration. Athletes understand this better than anyone. Every great champion has faced moments of absolute exhaustion, of self-doubt, of wanting to quit. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Serena Williams has faced loss after loss, injury after injury. But in those moments of frustration, they didn't throw in the towel. They studied their failures, adjusted their strategies, trained harder. They let frustration refine them, not define them. The same principle applies in business, in art, in science, in personal growth. Frustration isn't a stop sign, it's a signpost. It tells us where we need to grow. It shows us where something isn't working, where we need to pivot, where we need to push further. It forces us to ask better questions, to experiment with new approaches, to dig deeper. Think about the people in your own life who inspire you. The ones who have built something meaningful, who have overcome challenges, who have turned their setbacks into comebacks. Chances are, every single one of them has a story of frustration, a moment where they could have given up, but instead, they use that frustration as momentum. The way we see the world shapes the way we move through it. It determines the risks we take, the opportunities we pursue, and the limits we place on ourselves. Two people can look at the exact same situation and see two completely different realities, one filled with possibility, the other filled with obstacles. This difference isn't about luck, intelligence, or skill, it's about mindset. At the core, there are two ways to approach life, with a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset. The scarcity mindset sees the world as a zero-sum game. If someone else wins, that means you lose. It believes that resources, opportunities, and success are limited. It's a mindset rooted in fear, fear of failure, fear of missing out, fear of not being enough. People with a scarcity mindset hesitate to take risks because they believe there's only one shot at success. They hold on to what they have, resist change, and operate from a place of protection rather than possibility. On the other hand, the abundance mindset operates from the belief that there is always more opportunities, more knowledge, more success to go around. It sees setbacks as lessons, challenges as chances to grow, and competition as inspiration rather than a threat. Those with an abundance mindset don't fear sharing ideas or celebrating others' success because they understand that success isn't a pie with limited slices. Just because someone else succeeds doesn't mean there's less available for them. Consider the way businesses operate. A company with a scarcity mindset guards information, resists collaboration, and avoids innovation for fear that it might fail. It focuses on short-term gains, squeezing as much as possible out of what already exists rather than investing in long-term growth. But the most successful companies, Apple, Google, Tesla, operate from an abundance mindset. They invest in innovation, take risks, share ideas, and understand that pushing boundaries today leads to limitless possibilities tomorrow. They don't just ask, how do we protect what we have? They ask, what's possible if we think bigger? The same applies to individuals. Take two employees at the same company. One believes opportunities are limited. If someone else gets a promotion, that means there's less for them. They hold back ideas, hesitate to collaborate, and see colleagues as competitors rather than allies. The other sees growth as limitless. They share their ideas freely, lift others up, and trust that their efforts will lead to new opportunities, even if they don't see them immediately. Over time, which person do you think will grow more? The one who hoards and protects, or the one who gives and contributes? The difference is even more visible in the way people handle failure. Someone with a scarcity mindset sees failure as proof that they aren't good enough, that they've lost their one chance. They retreat, play it safe, and hesitate to try again. But someone with an abundance mindset sees failure as part of the process. They understand that every mistake is a lesson, every setback a stepping stone. They don't ask, why did this happen to me? They ask, what can I learn from this? Think about relationships. A scarcity mindset creates jealousy, comparison, and a fear of losing what we have. It makes us cling too tightly, afraid that if we don't control everything, we'll end up with nothing. But an abundance mindset brings trust, generosity, and the understanding that love, connection, and success aren't finite. The more we give, the more we receive. The greatest leaders, innovators, and change makers all operate with an abundance mindset. They don't fear competition, they welcome it. They don't shy away from challenges, they embrace them. They don't believe success is reserved for a lucky few. They understand that growth is available to anyone willing to shift their perspective. It's a question that disrupts the ordinary. It challenges assumptions. It forces us to rethink what's possible. Yet most people never ask it. Most people get stuck in the way things are instead of imagining the way things could be. They assume that frustration means failure, that obstacles mean the end of the road. But the most successful thinkers, the inventors, the visionaries, the leaders, know that frustration isn't a dead end. It's an invitation to think differently. And it starts with, what if? Imagine the world before electricity. Darkness was inevitable. When the sun went down, life slowed down. Candles and oil lamps provided temporary relief, but they were inefficient and unreliable. Many people accepted this as reality. It was just the way the world worked. But then someone asked, what if light didn't have to go out when the sun set? That single question led to the pursuit of artificial light and eventually to the invention of the light bulb. Look at the Wright brothers. Before powered flight existed, the idea of humans soaring through the sky seemed absurd. People believed it was impossible. They accepted the limitations of gravity. But instead of focusing on why it couldn't be done, the Wright brothers asked, what if humans could fly? That shift in thinking didn't just lead to a new mode of transportation. It redefined human potential. History is full of these moments. What if information could be accessed instantly? The internet was born. What if people could communicate across the world in real time? The telephone was invented. What if music didn't have to be stored on physical discs? Streaming services emerged. Every major leap forward began with someone refusing to accept things as they were. But what if thinking isn't just for inventors and industry leaders? It's a tool anyone can use in any situation. Think about a frustrating problem in your own life. Maybe it's a job that feels stagnant, a relationship that feels strained, or a goal that seems just out of reach. It's easy to get stuck in statements like, this isn't working, or I don't know what to do. But what if, instead of dwelling on what's wrong, you asked a new question? What if I looked at this from a completely different angle? What if the obstacle in front of me isn't the problem, but the way I'm approaching it? What if this challenge is actually an opportunity in disguise? What if the solution is simpler than I think? The power of what if is that it forces our brains to search for solutions instead of excuses. It moves us from a place of frustration to a place of possibility. Instead of saying, I can't do this, we start asking, how could this be done differently? And once we start asking better questions, we open the door to better answers. Take someone stuck in a job they don't love. Instead of saying, I hate my job, they could ask, what if I made small changes to bring more meaning into my work? What if I used this time to build new skills? What if I looked for ways to grow instead of just waiting for something better? The situation itself doesn't change overnight, but the mindset does. And that's the first step toward transformation. Or consider someone dealing with failure. Maybe they've launched a business that didn't take off, written a book that no one read, or taken a risk that didn't pay off. The natural response is disappointment. But instead of saying, this didn't work, so I give up, what if they asked, what if failure is just part of the process? What if I'm learning something valuable that will make the next attempt even stronger? Children do this instinctively. They question everything. They explore, they experiment, they push boundaries. They don't accept limitations, they challenge them. Somewhere along the way, many of us lose that curiosity. We trade what if for that's just the way things are. But the moment we reclaim that way of thinking, we reclaim our ability to innovate, to adapt, to see opportunities where others see dead ends. Because what if is more than a question. It's a mindset. It's the foundation of creativity, resilience, and growth. It's the ability to see beyond what is and imagine what could be. Frustration is not the enemy. It's a catalyst. It's the starting point for innovation, resilience, and transformation. The way we respond to frustration defines our trajectory. Those who see it as a dead end remain stuck. But those who reframe it, leverage it, and ask, what if? Turn it into an opportunity for growth. Success is not reserved for those who never face obstacles. It belongs to those who embrace them. The most remarkable breakthroughs, whether in science, business, relationships, or personal growth, come from people who refuse to accept things as they are. They don't allow frustration to defeat them. They use it to push forward, to think differently, to challenge the status quo. The choice is always ours. We can let frustration drain us, or we can let it drive us. We can see problems as barriers, or we can see them as invitations to think bigger. Because in the end, it's not about avoiding challenges. It's about how we use them to become stronger, smarter, and more capable than we ever thought possible.